A show created by the fans, for the fans. We are your home for Ohio State football coverage all year long. The Scarlet and Gray Podcast, a Network 216 production. Live weekdays on the Network 216 YouTube channel. Send us all your questions and comments on Twitter at @VSG_podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Tyler Johnson, Jordan Dalton, and Nick Leisure.
Hello, Buckeye Nation. Welcome to the Scarlet and Gray Podcast. I am Tyler Johnson, joined by Nick Leisure, Jordan Dalton. Gentlemen, Merry Christmas. How are you boys doing?
Wow.
Pretty good.
I'm doing great. It's just a great day to be a Buckeye today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Of course, there's plenty to talk about. Including briefly recapping just what was a kind of ridiculous first-round college football playoff overall performance from a lot of other teams. But before we get to any of it, guys, quick second, drop a like on the video, subscribe if you are brand new to the channel. Again, we really appreciate everyone's showing support on the YouTube channel. Just as a reminder, every show available on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. So if you ever miss anything, be sure to go over there and give us a 5-star review if you would. We really would appreciate that. All right, gentlemen, Ohio State absolutely, and I mean absolutely, just demolishes Tennessee in this game, 42-17. So there were a lot of talk before the game that there are about 30% Tennessee fans there. I will say, regardless of what percentage was there, the fact that all of them had to drive about 9 to 10 hours home, probably very sad. Was very satisfying. But anyways, guys, what are some of your takeaways from arguably the most dominant performance we've seen out of an Ohio State team maybe in 2 years, 3 years?
Yeah. I picked Ohio State to lose this game. So kind of reverse drink, like the TJ reverse jinx. Yeah, I think they answered all the questions in this game, especially coming off that loss to the team up north, the way they looked. The seniors really played the best football we've seen them play at Ohio State. Just calling out a quick couple names, JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, Will Howard, Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, Emeka Ibuka, Cody Simon, all these, Lathan Ransom, all these guys had outstanding games. Not what I expected. I thought it was going to be complete opposite. I thought that they would have folded under pressure. Kind of shows how much of a fan I am, I guess. But I don't know. I didn't think they had it in them, and so to go, get that final win at Ohio Stadium for those guys, and then a chance at a rematch in the Rose Bowl against Oregon. I don't think you could set up a better storyline for this season. And yeah, I was very pumped up last night after the first quarter, and then ultimately at the end of the game. So yeah, we'll get into it. But yeah. Just a great game.
The two guys, well, three guys if you want to include J.J. Smith, but he's kind of the obvious guy, right? Mm-hmm. Will Howard, absolutely dynamite in this game, 24-29, just was lights out. The pick he threw, I didn't think the defender got a foot down. It could have been PI anyway. So, I mean, I'm not really holding that against Will Howard. And then, dude, Travion Henderson, he was electric last night. Every time he touched the ball, he was making a play. So those three guys on offense really stood out to me. And obviously, Cody Simon was just an animal. He cracks Nico's helmet right away in that first quarter, kind of set the tone right away. So, I mean, just and overall, just great performance. Second quarter got a little spotty, which we'll get into, but after that, dude, it was all Buckeyes the entire way. So you couldn't ask for a better showing from Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I'll get into a couple players here in a second, but the first thing I have to say, and I saw someone tweet this, why does it take us playing our worst game of the year against Michigan for this team to just drop their nuts and just play balls to the wall? Like, we've seen it happen before. Ryan Day against Georgia in the college football playoff. Like, we've seen it before. And it just seems like every time this team loses to Michigan, they come out and look, for the most part, like a completely different team, the team we've been wanting to see all season. So I just have to say that because, man, that was great to see. But I'm also thinking to myself, dude, we have the potential to do this every single week. And the fact that we just don't do it, it's mind-blowing. It really is. But I mean, absolutely fantastic performance. First off, I loved the way not only Will Howard played fantastic. I remember seeing Will Howard, I believe it was either his first or second attempt of the game, threw a really bad ball across the middle to Emeka Egbuka that Emeka almost caught. And I'm like, oh, man. I hope Will can figure it, because you're like, oh, man, if he's missing that badly tonight, it could be a long day. And then after that, it was curtains for Tennessee. You hit two deep shots. Both to Jeremiah Smith, where it's just fantastic passes. And I'll say this, Will Howard's probably his best throws of the year. And I pointed this out last night. Nick, we were talking about it. The interesting thing, guys, that we've talked about with Will Howard, he's better coming off of play action on the deep ball than he is a shotgun. I'll tell you what, he was throwing those out of shotgun last night, and they were absolute just dimes. So played his best when it mattered most. Absolutely fantastic performance from him. Easy to talk about TreVeyon Henderson, but I know you guys have. So the guy I'm going to talk about for a second, I'm going to talk about Donovan Jackson. Donovan Jackson was absolutely phenomenal last night. He moved over to left tackle, of course. When Josh Simmons got hurt, he struggled a little bit. But against James Pierce, he did not give up a single sack to James Pierce, who is one of the best defensive ends in the country. He played fantastic football. Another shout on the offensive line, too, Luke Montgomery. It makes you wonder when a guy like that can step in against a defense like Tennessee, why he's not starting ahead of Tegra Shabola. And I'm not going to criticize Shabola. But when you see his performances this year, and then you see what Luke Montgomery did last night, it just is like, come on, man. Like, I feel like he should have been starting all along. And then on the defensive side, I'm going to, first off, the two seniors, I think they need a lot of props. Jack Story and JT Tuimoloau have come under a lot of heat, and especially from our standpoint, because these are guys that come in as 5-star recruits and literally the top two at their position, and it just seems like they've never lived up to the hype. You know what? Best performances Buckeyes last night in games that mattered most, and we were waiting to see JT perform like that against a team that wasn't Penn State.
Real.
and he was fantastic. So, first off, those guys deserve a shout out. And then, Nick, we talked about it last night too. I think, and we'll hit on this more when we recap the 2024 season, the step Cody Simon has taken from last season to this season is just absolutely monumental. This is a guy that wasn't even going to get drafted last year. And now you're talking probably potentially a day 3 draft pick. I mean, a day 2 draft pick, mid-day 2. He's been that good for the Buckeyes. And I think James Laurinaitis deserves a lot of credit for that. But yeah, just a couple of players that stood out for me. And guys, talk about Tennessee a little bit. Clearly, they were trying to say the weather wasn't a factor. It clearly was for some of these guys, because they were stiff from the get-go in this game.
Well, yeah, I mean, Nico struggled, 14 of 31 for 104, 3.5 yards of completion. So, I mean, but we kind of knew that coming in, right? We knew that Nico wasn't the offense. I mean, he definitely made some plays with his legs, which, you know, he carried the ball 20 times yesterday, on Saturday night, which is just insane, right? But no Dylan Sampson pretty much the entire ball game, had a hamstring injury. And with the weather, trying to keep that hamstring warm, it wasn't going to happen. So that was a huge factor, right, going into the ball game. We were expecting Sampson to go crazy, and he was just not able to go. He wasn't able to get that thing loose, keep it warm. So, yeah, I mean, but to be honest with you, the way the Buckeye defense was playing last night, or Saturday, whatever. I don't think it was going to make a difference either way.
Yeah, really the only time Tennessee had an opportunity to move that football was that final drive of the first half. And for whatever reason, those outside corners were playing extremely soft, 10, 15 yards off, and then they were just picking it apart all the way down the field. If it wasn't open, Nico was taking off, getting chunk yards on the ground. I think he finished that drive with like 38 yards rushing. So he was definitely a big part of it to end that half, and they'd made the adjustments at halftime, and they went, started the game on fire on defense, gave up those 10 points, 3 points off the interception, got a quick 3-and-out on Ohio State, and then drove down and got that touchdown right before half. And then Ohio State just came back out of the locker room at halftime on fire, got that quick score or quick stop, quick score, and then they just never really let them get going again. And I think you could say all you want about Tennessee, but the defensive line really won that battle up front. They couldn't get their run game going, and that was something we had talked about on the game preview, how tough their run game was. And so they couldn't get it going. Nico's not the most accurate passer through the air. And they were just able to stifle everything they did offensively. So I think defensively, no one can stop Ohio State's offense when they're clicking like they were. So I think Ohio State, it was just a perfect storm of every phase of the game coming together, minus the field goal kicking. But yeah, just a great game overall.
I think too, man, you look at Tennessee, and we knew going in, I mean, we talked about it a lot on the pregame show. You force Nico to have to throw to beat you, you're going to win this football game, and that's what it was from the get-go. I will say the fact Dylan Sampson wasn't available, it does make you wonder just how much of a difference it would have made. But again, you mentioned it, Nick, with the defense playing the way it was, I don't know if it would have made a huge difference. They probably average more than 3.9 yards a carry, I would say. But even so, I don't think the score would have been a whole lot different in this game. And then you talk about it, JD. Yeah, that was my only complaint I really had with the defense. At the end of the first half, you're just letting them pretty much just taking it right down the field, which was kind of surprising given how you were just dominant from the get-go in this game. Right. So, I wish minor complaint. Just, man, press these receivers, dude. These receivers weren't going to do anything against you. They weren't very good. Brew McCoy's a 6-year senior. That dude ain't good. He's a big body. That's about it.
Well, that Squirrel kid, he's one of their best receivers. He got hurt.
Yeah, and they were in trouble there too.
Yeah.
They weren't going to – once that happened too, they weren't going to do anything. And I was very surprised, I'll admit, how much Nico was involved in the run game. He carried the ball 20 times. That is absolutely insane for a guy that's not that type of quarterback. But,
I think it was working, right? I think they saw that it was working, so they were just going to keep feeding it. And, I know we talked yesterday. When Tennessee scored that touchdown right before halftime, I'm thinking, all right, guys, let's buckle down here right coming out of the gate, because Tennessee was getting the ball back. They have all the momentum. It's only an 11-point game. They easily could have came down, scored another touchdown. It's 21-17, and then Ohio State's now playing with their backs against the wall. And you're kind of thinking, we've seen this before where a team has kind of blown it up. But, again, defense comes out, gets a 3-and-out right away, gets the ball back to the offense, and the offense did their thing. And Tennessee didn't score again until very late in garbage time. Right? Yeah, but, dude, it was just – this is the type of performance that we expect from a team this loaded, right? This is the $20 million roster put to work. And I know we've talked about JTT a little bit, but he was just unreal. And so is Jack Sawyer, right? Jack Sawyer coming off the edge. He had a couple of deflections on the pass game, which you don't see that very often. I know he almost had a pick six late in the game. He had a deflection. It popped in the air, and he was tracking it down trying to go catch that thing because he saw green grass in front of him. So this just got to continue to carry over. And, Chip Kelly called just a perfect game. He was on his game yesterday, and that's all you can really say. I mean, it was just domination from the get-go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you flip to the Ohio State offense. We talked about it. You have the best perimeter game in college football. There's no one that can stack with you with your talent on the perimeter. Just get them the football. And from the get-go, they were doing it. And it makes such a difference because there's nobody. Tennessee's got no one, out there that can even contain any of these guys. Like, that's just – and to be fair, there aren't many people in college football that do. Like, let me just say that. But, Jermod McCoy, who the PFF was trying to say was like the matchup with him and Jeremiah Smith. Dude, that guy's jock got ripped every time Jeremiah even like twitched towards him. And it's just Jeremiah Smith, guys. I feel like we talk about him ad nauseum, but it's kind of hard not to. This guy over 1,000 yards as a freshman, and he had 6 catches. I don't know about you guys. I felt like he had more than that. It just kind of like I thought he had way more than 6 catches in this game.
It was funny because like they were talking early in the game, and like we had talked about it on the pregame show, like get him the ball, get him involved early, because it's really something we didn't see against Michigan. And they were like, yeah, like they're looking to get him 10 targets today. I'm like, man, they didn't even need to get him 10 targets because every time he touched the football, he was making an impact. Like you said, he only finished with 6 catches, and it was like, man, like, why don't we just throw him the ball every play? It's insane. He's always making the play. There was one play, it was early on, where they ran play action to the left, but they had Jeremiah coming in motion, and they snapped it. And it was almost like a leak out. And they were doing, and they did it a couple times with Emeka. They were just getting the guys in motion along the line of scrimmage and just getting them out in the open space and getting them the football. And it was something we didn't see against Michigan. This offense was completely different. Chip Kelly was probably the one calling the plays this week, which
he was cooking.
Yeah, and he was looking really good. I don't think he was really that heavily involved with making the play calls in the Michigan game, if we're being honest. But they didn't settle in this game offensively. They attacked vertically. They got the playmakers the ball. Carnell Tate didn't even touch the ball until like the third quarter in the game. And it didn't matter. G. Scott was making catches. Everybody got involved. Travion Henderson got involved through the air as well. And it was just a great performance. And offensively, like I said, I don't think there's a team that can stop this offense when they're playing like that. So I'm really looking forward to this next game for sure.
No, absolutely, dude. I think one thing that kind of stood out to me just when you're looking back on things, I understand like trying to keep touches even between Henderson and Judkins. But I'll say this, the way Trey was playing last night, I was a little bit surprised that he didn't get even more touches because he was just in his zone. And we've seen Trey like that, man. There's times like he's just, making that defense look silly. And don't get me wrong, Judkins had 2 touchdowns as well. Like, not take anything away from him. I was just surprised because I would have thought, man, if Trey's just dicing these dudes up, I would think that they would give him more touches. But I get it. Either way, really fantastic football game. I guess the question, and then we'll kind of just quickly recap just the playoff games from this week. Obviously, we'll have a Ohio State versus Oregon game day preview part 2 for the Rose Bowl. And we'll announce a date on that here in the future. Obviously, with the holidays, it's a little bit harder to plan that out, but don't worry, we will have an episode for you on that. But guys, you look at the teams remaining in the playoff. The question is, would you say, because there are a lot of people that believe it. Ohio State, I believe, is one of the highest betted odds right now to win the national championship. So the question I ask you guys, are the Buckeyes the favorite to win the national championship?
I think so. I think whoever wins this Rose Bowl is going to win the Natty.
I agree with Nick. I think if they can get past Oregon, I don't think there should be anybody favored above them. I think we saw this week. I was thinking about that. It was an 8-9 matchup, and they just proved that they were extremely underrated.
Mm-hmm.
They should have been a top 4 seed, honestly, but just the way that things shook out with the conference and everything like that, the loss to Michigan, I think definitely hurt them. But they proved that by a margin of about 30 points that they deserved to be ranked higher than they were. And so we're going to see if they can pull off the win against Oregon. I won't say it's not going to be an upset because we're favored in the game.
Which is nuts.
That's wild.
The number 1 team in the country, we're favored by 1.5.
Yeah. I think Vegas knows how good Ohio State is. It's just what team are we going to get in this game? If we get the team that just beat Tennessee, we can talk about national championships. If we're talking about the team that played Michigan, we're going to be sitting here in a week and a half, and we're just going to be like a disappointing season. So I think there's a lot riding on this game, just as much as there was riding on this game last night. I think there's a lot riding on this Rose Bowl coming up.
Yeah,
but we didn't get that first round loss, which I think would have put the dagger in the hearts of a lot of people on that coaching staff. So,
yep, I do agree with you guys too. As far as whoever wins this game wins the national championship. The other team that I think has a legit shot, personally, I think Texas. I don't know. If Quinn Ewers can do enough, and that's the biggest question, I think their defense is really good. I mean, I don't know. I think they got the weapons to do it too. They incorporate Arch a little bit into that offense, which they have been recently. I think Texas is pretty tough. Final Buckeye question here, guys. Ryan Day, this win against a top SEC team, absolutely demolishing them. Now, again, it was a home game, but does this at all change your opinion about Ryan Day at this moment?
This is the Ryan Day experience, though, right? These are the games that we expect him to win, and he wins them. It's can he get over that hump of beating a team that's as equally skilled as Ohio State?
I'll say when talent equates, can he win the game?
I mean,
I think Ohio State was more talented than Tennessee.
Yeah, and when it comes down to it, it was 2 teams that didn't even play in their conference championship game. Mm-hmm. So you got to look at it from the lens, like Ohio State and Tennessee in their respective conferences didn't play in, like we're basically third in their respective conferences to end the season. So and Ohio State was probably favored to win the Big Ten at the beginning of the year. Tennessee was not favored to win the SEC. So yeah, not equally talented. We took care of business at home. That's a game Ryan Day needs to win. And, he did it. I think a lot of opinions are going to be changed if we beat Oregon. A lot of opinions are going to be changed if we beat the winner of Texas, Arizona State. And if he ultimately wins a national championship, we can revisit this conversation. But there's still a lot of games to be played. And he, in my opinion, hasn't done anything outside of what he's already done at Ohio State. This is a good win. Don't get me wrong. It's a really good win. It's a playoff win. But all these first-round games in the playoff were blowouts, essentially. All the teams that were favored to win won by a pretty significant margin. I think the closest game was Indiana, Notre Dame, and that game was never close. And so, it's funny. Like everyone, myself included, was excited for the 12-team playoff, and I think there's going to be some really good football games ahead. But man, that first round was a stinker. Honestly,
dude, it was awful.
Dude.
They were all bad, and like I wanted to be excited, and I was, but man, I can't see how adding 4 more teams to that makes that product any better. It's just there's such a gap from 16 to 1. Mm-hmm. And those and like when they had the top 4 teams, we did have some games that were really lopsided, but for the most part, the national champion was the national champion. Like, it was really hard to argue a national champion for the 4-team. It's going to be really hard to argue a 12-team playoff national champion. But, man, those first-round games, they stunk. And I think just to go back to the Ryan Day conversation, like, I don't think he really proved anything in this game because of that.
That's
fair. No, I mean, and that's kind of how I feel too, because
it's a good win though, like you said.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great win. It's a great win. And
gotta win it if you want to get to where we want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, we could have been having a completely different conversation.
Yeah.
But we could have, and luckily we don't have to have that conversation. Hopefully the next conversation. Yeah, literally. But I mean, at least. Hopefully we get to have this conversation after the Buckeyes win a national championship, and then that really is an interesting kind of way to look at just Ryan Day's coaching career at Ohio State. But, JD, you kind of hit it on the head. The first-round games, absolutely brutal. You had SMU going to Happy Valley and getting just absolutely embarrassed, 38-10 to Penn State.
See, I hate that game because SMU's quarterback just did them no favors. I mean, 2 pick sixes.
It was bad, man.
Like, they're on the move both times, and then he just throws terrible passes, awful decisions.
Penn State wasn't moving the ball against SMU.
No, they couldn't do anything.
Not at all, dude.
Struggling. And the only time they scored a touchdown in the first, I think it was the first half, to make it 21-0. It was on a short field after another interception.
Yeah, so it's like that game bugs me because SMU is right there. They just couldn't finish the job when they got into the red zone and on Penn State's half of the field.
I was so surprised, and I think I mentioned this earlier at some point yesterday. I was surprised they didn't go to Preston Stone. I really am, because you got a guy with experience on the roster. I know he signed with Northwestern 5 minutes after the game, but it's like, dude, you have a guy with experience.
Mobile, but
I mean, yeah, he is,
mobile, but he can throw it.
Composure too. Like, I mean, Kevin Jennings was so rattled in that game, man. Once you saw it, if they put in Stone, I'm not saying they win the game, but I think they would have made it competitive at that point.
Yeah.
But then you move on. You talk about the final game of Saturday, and I mean the game right before Ohio State. Clemson at Texas. I mean, honestly, that game was closer than what the score indicates. I thought
Clemson was right there, dude.
Yeah. I was
surprised. They went down a touchdown late in the game, didn't they? There was 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. They scored.
They got stopped on 4th and goal.
Yeah.
They
was right there.
Yeah.
But
I'm glad Dabo lost though, because Dabo Sweeney can suck it.
But same here. I don't really like Sarkisian though either, but wouldn't mind seeing Ewers win. And then finally, the last game, Indiana at Notre Dame. I mean, this game was a blowout, even though the score says otherwise. I don't know what Cignetti was trying to prove when you're running the ball, when you're trying to score another touchdown. I don't know. That guy he's entertaining. I'll give him that.
Bro. He is literally just a dweeb.
Dude, he's an older Lane Kiffin.
He is such a dweeb, bro. Talking all that trash at College Game Day. We beat top 25 teams' asses. Dude, you didn't beat a top 25 team all year long. What are you talking about?
Dude.
Dude. I was like, this guy is a dweeb out here talking all that trash, then just gets stomped.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I agree. Final question, guys, because it is a topic and a lot of Nick, one of your buddies, has already brought it up. Did the committee get the 12 teams right? Because a lot of people are questioning it now after all these blowouts.
People that talk about Alabama and stuff, it's like, dude, you lost 3 games. You lost to Tennessee. You weren't in your conference title game. You lost to Vandy. Dude, they have some bad losses on that schedule. So, yeah, I mean, I think they got it right this time. For all the people crying that Alabama didn't make it in, boo-hoo, go win games against
hard to argue the 3 losses.
You don't lose that game to Oklahoma, you're in probably.
Yeah, exactly.
And
you lost to Vandy. Vandy was 6-6 this year. Come on, man.
Yeah. And you just lost to Tennessee, who just got boat raced by Ohio State.
Yes.
So
exactly. They got it right.
Yeah,
Dude,
I think they got it right. And like I said, I don't see how it gets better. Like sure, you could swap out Alabama for somebody, but if we end up going to a 16 team, like the 16th ranked team in the country could be another, like Boise State or like a team that's
Army,
not great. Yeah,
Group of 5. Yeah, Army, and like they're not going to beat an Oregon in the playoff.
No.
Like I don't know.
No.
It could be different in the next couple of years, but there's just such a gap between those programs, the 16 to the 1. It gets less and less as you get, closer to the top. But I don't know. It's we'll see. We'll see how it ends up playing out.
Let's be honest. I think there's like you said, Jordan, there's such a big gap between 1 and 16. There's really 4 teams and then just everybody else. It's Ohio State, Georgia, Texas, and maybe Notre Dame. Maybe that's a push. But those Texas, Georgia, Ohio State are right there at the top. Oregon's right there too. But it's not going to be close.
I think they got it right by expanding. I don't think it should be 12. Like after seeing what just happened this weekend, I'm just like, man, 8 teams would have been great.
Yeah.
8 would have made a lot of sense. I mean, going from first round buys right away was interesting. I mean, I think
would have been good.
The thing too is just not only Alabama fans, because that one was funny itself. The real funny one was seeing Miami fans complain when, like, dude, you didn't beat anybody, and then you had 2 terrible losses. Like, if you don't lose, you're in. Like, it's not hard to understand. You were gonna be in. You just don't lose to crappy teams. And they weren't hard, and they weren't brutal environments either. You're not going to the big house. Like, you're not going to Tuscaloosa or LSU. You're not doing that. So I know. To me, it was just hilarious. It really
the Miami argument's funny.
The Miami one is hilarious.
Cam Ward comes on and says, "We got the best offense in the country." Well, obviously not, dude. Because
you did, you'd be here. You did, you'd be here. And then of course Lane Kiffin just being Lane, making his ridiculous
comments. Go Bulls, baby.
Hey, I will say, Joe Klatt said, if your team was as good as you tweet, you'd probably be here. So
roasted.
True. Literally, it's fantastic. But all right, guys, wrapping things up here. Anything you want to add before we sign off?
Men's basketball team just beat Kentucky. Congrats to them. That's a big win after kind of a rocky start to the season. Bruce Thornton's a dog.
Dude, the quietest 30 points of his career.
Just good. He's just a good ball player. Really good leader for that squad.
He's awesome.
And
good to have Aaron Bradshaw back too. It was a big lift, dude. It was a big lift. Dude, 20-point dub against my wife's just precious Kentucky Wildcats. So got to rub it in a little bit yesterday. It felt pretty good.
Got a couple big wins over some SEC schools yesterday.
Yes, 2-0 against the SEC yesterday. Doesn't get
great day to be a Buckeye again.
It is a great day to be a Buckeye. Fantastic. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in this episode of Scarlet and Gray Podcast. Like I said earlier, drop a like on the video if you would. Subscribe if you're brand new to the channel. Every show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, so you'll never miss any of those shows. As a reminder, every show normally will be uploaded to Spotify and Apple the next morning. So you missed the live show, always tune in the next day on audio. But if you are on Spotify or Apple, just a reminder, please leave us a 5-star review. You don't even have to give us any comments on the review. Just leave the review. It does help those apps really push the show out to viewers that have not yet seen the show. So we will be back. Like I said, we'll announce on social media when we will be releasing the Ohio State versus Oregon Rose Bowl game day preview. But thank you all for tuning in. We will talk to you all again soon. As always, go Buckeyes.
Dramatic pause.